Hey everybody, Kevin here. I'm gonna just try to do this in one take with the audio. This is a Packard Bell that I picked up for maybe about 20 bucks. This was recorded in about 2017, and I'm gonna just do a teardown and cleanup of this machine. As you can see, it's pretty dirty, pretty filthy. When I bought it, it did boot up perfectly fine, although I didn't test all the peripherals. I was just too excited. I just bought it and brought it home. And this one right here is a Multimedia E153, and it's actually very close to the first IBM PC that my family had when I was a kid. The first computer that we had was an Apple IIgs, which didn't really get too much use out of because it wasn't really until the Windows PCs that, computers were really useful during that time. And this has a really interesting bottom design for taking the case off. So we take these 4 screws off, and the case splits off here. So we take this side off, and then we can, of course we got to make sure that we're lubed up here. So I got my Angry Orchard, and unscrew this side, and then this side of the case comes off. And as you can see, there's a service sticker there, which I cut. So this machine has not previously been opened. And I'm going to unscrew the CD-ROM drive from this side, flipping it over, and then we'll unscrew it from this side. So the CD-ROM drive should be free, so I'll unhook the power and I'll grab the IDE out. Now, one thing that I didn't realize at the time is that I didn't have the audio pass through, so it got stuck, and there it is, there's unhooked. So this is the original that was in the machine. And let's unhook the hard drive. So here we have the hard drive power and the IDE data cable. So that should be free. And we'll go ahead and unhook the audio cable from the sound card that was plugged into the CD-ROM drive. Now that would be for like listening to CDs, Redbook audio directly from the CD-ROM drive. And we'll plug it back into the CD-ROM drive so that way we have a place to put it. And right now I'll just go ahead and unscrew the sound card. And we'll just pull this little front panel off and unscrew these 4 screws to loosen up the power supply. So the power supply is loose. I'm gonna just create a couple of these labels here and put them on the cables and on the board so that I don't get lost in where things are supposed to be plugged in when I'm done. And the fan comes off pretty easy just by unscrewing these 4 screws here. And you can see it's not too terribly bad, just a little bit dusty underneath. Now over here we have sort of a bar that runs across that holds the daughter board in place. And the Packard Bell computers were very famous for having this configuration. So I'm going to pull the daughter board off, and this is what holds the expansion slots, the ISA and the PCI cards, or slots I should say. So we'll go ahead and unplug the IDE cables and the floppy disk drive. Here's the power cables. I'm just going to make a quick mark so I know where they go, even though it should be pretty easy, left to right. I'm not quite sure why I did that, but whatever. And unscrewing these screws, I can bring the motherboard loose, although it looks like I forgot to unplug a cable. So I'll just make a little label here so I know where it goes and unplug it. And the motherboard is free. Look at that. Look how freaking gorgeous that is. The 90s at its finest. Now let's get the hard drive out. So we'll we'll unscrew these screws here. Now I'll start to clean up a little bit. We got this, I don't know what the hell this damn sticker was. Some alcohol to pull it off. There's like some weird sticker over here. It's just solid white. Maybe at one point I had some text on it, who knows. And I'll just go ahead and start cleaning off some of the gunk with some alcohol. And believe it or not, this got a lot of crap off. Now we'll pull the floppy disk cable out, unplug the power on the floppy disk, and unscrew the floppy disk, which believe it or not, was a bit of a chore, because we have a couple of screws that were pretty easy to reach. And then we have this screw over here, which I really couldn't grab, so I just had to get a, just a pair of pliers and unscrew it manually. And then there's another screw over here where I had to get a nice little angle to get to it. Thank you, Packard Bell, for that one. But the floppy drive is free, and I'll continue kind of wiping the machine down to get it nice and clean, get the gunk off. And you could see the yellow discoloration when you compare it to the color of the stickers. And then I'll also take out the expansion covers here. And then when I'm done, I'll just put the screws back in place. That way I don't have to worry about storing them and losing them. And continue to just make sure it's, sort of clean. And, right here, I'm just taking off that service sticker so I don't have to worry about that. Now I'm gonna start to get this thing ready for a little bit of what people would call retro bright. So I'm gonna just run some plastic across the bottom. And if I would do this over again, I would take the entire power supply out, but the power supply is connected to a lot of things. What I'm doing here is just wrapping the power supply in plastic wrap, and then putting a you know, some paper towel over it. Because I actually leave the power supply in here when I do the retro bright process. Which again, like I said, if I were to do it over again, I wouldn't do this because leaving it in the hot sun for a day is probably not the smartest of ideas. But now I'm going to lay down some plastic and put the computer down, and here we go. Pull out the gloves, because every time I do this, I always make sure that I wear gloves, because when you get this stuff on your hands, it kind of leaves a whiteness on your hands because it burns your skin. So I'm going to use the Salon Care 40. Which is the heavy duty stuff, and it works pretty good for this, but you got to be careful because sometimes it could sort of rip paint and colors off of things, so you just got to be careful when you use this. It can also leave streaks if you don't do it right. So what I'm going to do is, after I've cleaned everything off, I'm just going to use a paintbrush and just paint on the Salon Care 40 all over every single exposed plastic part of the case. And here I go in. And yes, of course, I actually did it this fast. I mean, that's what, you know, that's what drinking ciders all day will do to you. Ooh, boy. That's some you know, compare the whiteness of that sticker, and then at the end of the video when we do the reveal, we'll see how much this brightens up. I know the lighting is not very good because my quality sucks, because I don't have high quality cameras and stuff like that. So I'll pull the plastic wrap over, and you know, the thing about having the plastic covering it is to make sure that the Salon Care 40 doesn't evaporate off, and also that, you know, things, dirt, leaves and stuff don't stick to the item that you have. Because what we're gonna do is, after this thing is covered up, and here I'm just kind of completing covering it up, as I'm just gonna stick it out in the sun. Now I put this out in the sun for somewhere about 12 to 14 hours. This was pretty early in the morning when I did this, and then I just went out like maybe every 20-30 minutes, something like that, and rotated it just to make sure that every single part of it had equal sun exposure. And pretty much I'm gonna do the exact same thing here. This slides off pretty easily. You just kind of pull it towards yourself. You can see that it has a little track there. And right over here, this is also a little service sticker that's like, you know, void if, you know, if this is cut or whatever. So I'm just gonna rip that off. And you know, the sun moves in the sky during the day, so whenever you do this kind of thing where you leave it out for a few hours, just make sure that you go out and make sure that you move your item throughout the day, and that every, you know, aspect of it does get equal exposure to the sun, or else you're gonna have spots that look more yellow than others. You can also use, you know, I also sometimes use a fish tank with UV lights or black lights, but the sunlight is a lot faster. You know, I find what you can do in this one day in the sun can take sometimes a couple of weeks with a black light. So, you know, whatever, you kind of pick your poison. As you can see here, just kind of doing the same thing, wrapping this up here. I'm just gonna pull this apart just like I did with the other one. This one seemed to give me a little bit more trouble. I don't know. Just sometimes things are just like that, and just keep putting on here. You can see one of them is a lot yellower than the rest. We'll go ahead and put those out in the sun. We'll lay out some more plastic wrap for this piece. Now, if I really wanted to, what I probably should have done is pulled that plastic cover off and left that metal piece alone and not put it out in the sun, but that's okay. I mean, it's not too much of a big deal. Now that those are out sitting baking in the sun, I'm just gonna take this motherboard and clean it up a little bit, put a little bit of alcohol on a toothbrush and clean it up. Here, I'm just kind of blowing off some of the dust. And here, again, I'm rubbing it off and grabbing a Q-tip and cleaning off some of the dust. And that goes on for quite a while, just making sure that it's nice and clean. You know, by the time I was done with this, it looked pretty much brand new. The only thing that I wish that I did was took the RAM chipset. Now we're on to coffee. Yes, now we're on to coffee. The only thing I wish that I did was took out the RAM chips and maybe cleaned those slots out, but not a big deal. And here we'll just do the same thing. This is the sound card. Just clean it up, making it look all nice and good. No big deal. Now here's the daughter board. And we're just gonna spray this thing up. I'll take my toothbrush with my alcohol, clean up all the slots, making it look as if it was brand new. This thing was in great shape. Now here's the floppy disk drive. Now we're just gonna clean this guy up, Make it look all nice and good and rub it up with some alcohol. I like to use alcohol because it gets any grease that, maybe some gooey stuff that could have gotten in there. I could have taken the whole thing apart, but whatever. So now I'll just kind of blow it inside here. If it didn't work, I would have taken it apart. So now here we go. I'm going to take this off. This, like I said, this has been baking in the sun for 12 to 14 hours, something like that. We'll clean off all of the Salon Care 40, and it's kind of hard to tell because, again, the lighting is so bad, but this is significantly brighter than it looked before it was put out there. I also like to use alcohol here just to make sure that everything gets taken off. And that does look a lot brighter. Like I said, the lighting is terrible, so it's really hard to tell. But I think it's a little bit more viewable here, especially when you look at the back where you saw those stickers before. So let's clean off the Salon Care 40. And I know I can tell because, this is my computer, but this thing did a pretty good job at whitening this baby up. I could have done a better job at tearing more of it down and working on the components individually, but look at the earlier shots compare this area around the sticker to the computer. That is a lot whiter. So this thing looked pretty good. I wouldn't say it looked brand new, but it looked pretty damn good. That is just absolutely stunning, absolutely gorgeous. I love it. Absolutely love it. Alright, so I'll just go ahead and free the power supply that I wish I took the time to completely remove, but it ended up surviving the day in the sun, and I'll just blow out any dust that may be hanging out inside there and put it back in its place where it belongs. Go ahead and screw it back together. There you go. Put you back where you belong there, buddy. Alright, now let's put this thing back together, and we'll reassemble this first with the floppy disk drive, screwing it back in. Yep, there we go. I'm going to leave out that really weird complicated screw because it's not really that necessary. And I'll put the original hard drive in there, although later I'll probably end up putting in a solid state hard drive. Actually, I do end up putting a solid state hard drive. Now put the motherboard back in, put these screws in place. And there we go. I'll take off my little labels here, so now I know where the reset button goes, and the fan obviously goes right back where it was, and it just goes right back on. Very simple, very awesome, very elegant. We're just putting everything back exactly where we found it. It's just now it's nice and clean and beautiful. Now, one thing I wish I did here was go back with some alcohol to maybe remove those marker lines, but it's okay. I can go back and do that later. We'll plug in the power to the floppy drive, plug in the cable, plug in the IDE, data and power, put the daughter board back in. There we go. Looking fine. And put this bar back in. This supports the daughter board and also supports the outside edge of the case. The daughter board fits into a groove on there, so just make sure that when you put that in there, you stick it in that groove, because I made that mistake one time. So there we got the all that back together. So now the original CD-ROM drive that I got, it didn't work. So as you can see right here, I'm showing this gear right here is broken. This is the gear that opens and closes the drive. So it's unfortunate, but whatever. So I can't use that, but I did have this drive here, which is compatible with this computer, and it is compatible with the original master CD, which is really the important thing, the drivers that are on there. So I'm gonna slide this in there, and you can hardly tell the difference unless you're sort of a Packard Bell fanatic. And this drive, I think, was with a later model Packard Bell. That's where it originally came from. So look at that. Not too bad. I wish that the original one still worked, but whatever. So we'll go ahead and plug it in, get the data cable here, and we'll plug in the power, and we'll plug in the audio, which I accidentally here put it on the outside part of the bar, but it's okay. I immediately fixed that. We'll slide this in. Look how that doesn't really look yellow anymore, does it? I mean, it's not, not too bad. Like I said, it doesn't look brand new, but it doesn't look terrible. We'll put the side here of the side of the case, the other side of the case, and this baby is back together, ready to be powered on and played, which I will go do. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Catch you guys later. Bye-bye.